Alright, this is Neil. Welcome back. We're going to continue where we left off. This is part 3 of how to draw folds and clothes and stuff. I think I'm going to do, excuse me, my voice. I think I'm going to do pants on this girl. So, or, part of her pants that you can see. I'm going to zoom in here. And one thing that's important to remember about pants is they're going to kind of come like this. It's very rare that you're going to be looking up at the character. Like the horizon line is probably here. So lines that go below the horizon line are going to be like this, And if the waist were right on the horizon line, you'd still kind of see a slight dip like that. Another important thing is that pants do kind of, remember she's a cylinder like this, so pants have to kind of fall into that cylinder shape as well. But if we were looking up at her, the horizon line was down here. I should probably get rid of that line. If the horizon line was down here and we're looking up the pants, it would still have that cylinder, but the cylinder would be going up like that. But it's very rare that you actually look up at pants, so just know where your horizon lines are at. I'm going to kind of pull in, come across. Actually, I want her pants to be a little bit lower than that, so like this. And I usually, do this kind of shape rather than, just round. I think it looks cooler. I'll go ahead and draw her sides there. Now, it's important to come out, away from the pants with some thickness. And don't just come out like that, like I just did. Rather, stop. Either come out like this a little bit and then come like that. And you can vary how thick that is, and it's going to go like that. Or at least stop at the edge there and then come like that. So that's important to show, rather than that over there. I'm going to show a little bit like that and then come in like this. And you can also pull in and maybe show. You can kind of see the top of the pants there a little bit, or the top of a belt if she's wearing a belt. Typically pants, you have part for the belt here, little sewing right there. They're pretty close to the center, like so. And then you kind of draw at an angle when you get up here like that, and then come down. And then you would have the part like this. Going by memory here, but I think I'm getting everything right. A button. Also keep in mind sometimes button, depending on the material, might have a few stretch folds like that. And maybe one coming down. Might even draw the part where the little line underneath where the button fit inside of or fit through. So she's not going to have a belt on. Usually the pockets start right here. There's a little sew part here. And they kind of come down like so. And you might want to, let's say there's a stretch crease right there, so you can kind of show that by the way you draw it. Then you might even show part of that pant there on the inside of the pocket coming out like so. Then there's going to be this kind of material here, inside stitch mark. Sometimes you don't have to draw the other side over there, but you can if you want, or you can just kind of come up part way. Then there's going to be another part here with the a seam where fabric is being pulled together, and you can actually have her legs kind of coming, have a little gap there. And now in this area here, you're always going to have a lot of tense marks usually, or stretch folds I'm going to call them. And so you'll have stretch folds in here, and they usually go horizontal this way here, but they kind of follow the leg a little bit. Like when you get close to here, the stretch folds might, usually just represent them as lines, might follow a little bit like that, and then they start getting more, and then as they get up here they might get sort of this is also should be a seam with the stitch marks, and that usually goes all the way out over there. Sometimes there's a secondary little pocket on one of the sides. You might have a couple folds right in there. You can have a couple more stretch marks right in there if you want. If you go across that pocket seam, you have to draw the seam with the stretch marks. I'm going to go right underneath it, but I don't have to do that. And you just do a few like that is enough. When you're doing comic books, you don't have to get too detailed with it. If you want to, though, you could actually represent one of these. Let's say you want this one to be more like a hook, so you can kind of hook it back a little bit. And let's say you want this one to kind of be like that, and then you could you would be shading it rather with whatever colors you're using. You'd have a little shade on both sides like that, just to show, like this would all be kind of fade out a little bit, just a little bit darker underneath it, maybe just a little bit on it, so that way it looks like almost like a tube. I don't know what to call them. They're not tube. They're cause some tension, from stretching, but they act a lot like a pipe or a tube fold, where you have the say this is the tube fold like that, and so it's going to be like so on the inside, so it's rolling, and then there's a little shadow on both sides like that. So that's the kind of tube I'm talking about, but it's more, instead of being like a tube, it's more like a cylinder where it comes out like that. But the fold, if I were to draw the three-dimensional things on it, the grid would be like that. So it's coming out and around, so it's coming out at us like that. So you have to shade one side depending where the light's coming from. And then finally you might have a few tense marks right there. You have the stitching on the inside of the leg and on the outside of the leg, and so because she's completely facing us, we're not going to see the stitching on the inside or the outside. If you did, you'd only see a little bit of it like that, where not the stitching, but you know what I mean, where the seams, where the seams come together. Now you have different kinds of ends you can do here, and I'm just going to have those two right there, and then I might come down and have a few like that, and then perhaps you might just see a little hook like that, and then maybe this one you have a little hook coming down like that. And so that's the top part of the pants, and we'll do full pants too as we continue. So what we cover so far is like where the bunches happen. Bunches happen here, or we'll call it scrunch wrinkles. And scrunch wrinkles typically have a lot of these dips and valleys. That is, you'll have like a cylinder, it's acting like the tube, but it's a cylinder, not cylinder, cone. So now remember, this wrinkle goes like that, so it's coming out at us, so that wouldn't be shaded, that would be white. When you do the coloring, this would be without shading. If you did any shading, it would just be a little bit along the bottom part if those lights coming from the top. And then you'd have a valley, and then let's say another tube. Not again, I'm calling them tubes. They're like this, and so it's this valley in between the two that would receive some shading. Then you might have a little shading under there and a little shading under that one, just to show that they're popping out. And so that's one way they overlap like that when in the bunching, when you get into this bunching area. And so you often have like these kind of edges like that, and when you resort to comic style, it's just like this. It's a lot more, it's simplified. So you'll have edge like that, and then you might have something like this, and then a little line, and maybe another one over there, and that shows this very complex scrunching of the cloth with just a few lines. You might add a few more lines if you wanted to really show it. It's up to you. Another thing is that when you have one of these types of cloth parts coming off like that, then you have the hook. Let's say it kind of hooks like this and comes here. It's typical like that, is that between two rolls like this, two of the kind of more tubular wrinkles, you have a valley in between it like this, so it's going to be shaded in between it like that. So just keep in mind that you'll have a lot of wrinkles like that in between. Then you'll have like S wrinkles too. So a way to draw S wrinkles when you have a tubular, so you have the arm, and the arm is kind of being bunched up right there, and you want a lot of wrinkles in here. You can kind of imagine that there's this kind of squiggly line like that, and then work around that. So let's say you want to kind of do zebra with little shapes like this in between, and then and come the opposite way, and just have little shapes, like little hook shapes like that, and these would be shaded in. And then it's all about how you do the edges. You want to pull the edges around those pieces. So that's how the edges would work around the pieces, and you can kind of pull the lines off of those and kind of show where it's like how it's all scrunching up. So that's just a quick way to kind of think about it, and to get the really complex scrunching, at least to get a starting area to work with. And that doesn't look the best, obviously, but get an idea of how to do it. and it's that white part, that part that makes all the S things, which gets really complicated. I typically keep it more simple, but you can get really complex with it. Okay, so then we're gonna we'll do something like maybe more pants, but maybe the back of the pants, and show where some of the wrinkles might appear really fast before we move on to the next video. Right, so we're gonna draw the pants on this girl, and we're gonna kind of be looking up at her. So because we're looking up at her, we are going to draw the pants coming up like this, and then coming down over here. Again, it's important that we come, outside of the pants itself. And so I want to, because we're looking up at it, so it'll be a little different. We're going to actually be looking at the pants like that. The seam will be right down the middle here, and then we're going to kind of crunch that part, and then come over here, and then come over that. Oops. And this is the other seam. If you wanted to actually draw the seam, it's down the bottom there. You might be able to see part of these coming out, the other loops for your belt buckles, which up here on the sides. And one in the back, two on the sides, and then the front you have them there and there, like close to the middle. Then you have the seams. You have a seam that runs all the way down the middle of the butt and disappears behind. It rolls into the front. That's the seam that goes all the way to the crotch. So you can kind of draw it like that, and then have it disappear like that. And then you have two seams here that go like so. I usually just represent them as a line, but you can do it as a seam if you want to, like so. You might have a little bit of bunching of material right here, just little wrinkles, but it's usually not necessary for a comic book to represent that kind of detail. Then you'll have the pockets. And it's important when you draw pockets, you can kind of, go with the shape of the butt. You can either go like that or like that. And notice that I'm doing the curves with the shape of the butt, so I want to show that, hey, this girl, has shape right here, and so it's stretching the material, showing you the shape of the butt. You have seams going across the top. You also have seams going all the way around the edges, so if you wanted to show that, you could. You can also just do it with like little dotted lines. And it's up to you how you want to show it. Okay. Then you'll have wrinkles coming and sometimes you'll have not wrinkles but stretched lines, because the reason why they appear here is the butt is coming out. The butt is stretching all of this material this way and that way, right? So it's coming out at us, and since it's being stretched like that, there's not going to be really any wrinkles in that area. Sometimes there might be, it depends, how, but as long as the person has a full butt, then there should be no wrinkles in this area. But below the butt there will be, because now you have where the butt's ending, where the buttocks underneath is ending, and you might have a few wrinkles in here. And the kind of wrinkles you're going to have sometimes, well, you'll have like a wrinkle like this, and then you might have, let's say, a wrinkle like that, right? And that's kind of almost like a hook wrinkle, or that's actually not a hook, sorry, this is coming out at us like that. So I'm going to call those tube wrinkles, even though they're kind of cylindrical in shape, like tubular. And then, or not like central, damn it, coned shape. I'm almost out of time. I'm going to do a like one of those triangle valleys underneath that would be dark. And I want to be careful not to cut it in half, cut the whole butt in half. So I don't, what I'm going to do? I'm going to use a smaller size brush for this, size 3. That way I can just represent this. Has a little like, oops, I should probably do this higher. A little bit one here. And then right underneath it, there's like a a little bit of a. I want to do a little bit like that, so it's going to be darker on this side and kind of shade over there, like so. And then all this is going to be shaded in. Like I would have it. Maybe I'd show some of the wrinkles with the shade. I'm not going to be able to see the seams on the inside or outside of the pants, so I don't. You might be able to see some of this. No, you probably won't see any seam on either side, so don't worry about the seams on the outsides of the pants. Sometimes right beneath the legs you might get tense lines that come down from there, or tense lines that go across, or you call them stretch lines that come across. So you might have a little one that comes like that, and then you can represent it as, being a slight triangle, and you can leave it white inside like that. Actually, it's fine. And finally, we'll do the outside, and I'm out of time. Damn it.